Welcome to Love and Tears. Sometimes a relationship doesn't end with a scream. It ends with a sentence spoken too calmly. It began with something stupid, one of those small arguments that disappears from your memory, even before the bruise in your heart does. A few days later, I tried again, gently, because I still believed love could be repaired if you treated it softly enough. Maybe this weekend. Just the two of us. No errands, no housework, no phones. Just a walk dinner. Maybe something more. Something to remind us we're still married and not just two strangers splitting bills under the same roof. Her eyes never left her phone. "You'll get intimacy when I feel like it," she said, her voice sugary with mockery. She looked up only long enough to smirk, then went right back to scrolling. For a moment, I stopped breathing. I didn't yell. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't even sigh. I just smiled. Not a bitter smile. Not a sarcastic one. A smile of clarity, cold, sharp, and final. Because in that moment, I finally saw it. Not just this argument, not just this night, but the truth of the past years. How long I'd been holding on to a marriage she quietly stopped caring about. How foolish I must have looked trying to revive something she had already buried. She didn't stop me when I walked away. She didn't call my name. She didn't ask what was wrong, but I felt her eyes on my back. Maybe somewhere inside her, a small voice whispered that something had shifted. She thought I was retreating, but I wasn't. I was leaving. That night, we slept in the same bed, but the distance between us felt like two continents. Her back turned, lit by the cold glow of her phone. Screen on, screen off, screen on. While beside her, the man she once loved lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My side of the bed felt like the edge of a cliff, and I didn't try to cross it anymore. No anger, no panic. Just purpose. 5 years ago, she was soft-spoken, warm, affectionate. She'd laugh at my dumb jokes. She'd wrap her arms around me when I came home tired. Back then, intimacy wasn't just physical. It was presence, safety, a shared life, at least. That's what I believed. Then came the slow changes. Fewer smiles, shorter answers, nights spent staring at screens instead of at each other. Silence replacing laughter. I told myself it was stress, or work, or hormones. Anything but the truth. When I tried to talk, she rolled her eyes. "You're too sensitive. Stop being needy." And like a fool, I backed off. I worked more, helped more, loved more. I tried so hard to not be a burden that I became invisible. And I never told a single person. Not my brother, not my best friend. I was too ashamed to admit that the woman I loved had slowly stopped loving me. But the final wound was a single sentence. "You'll get intimacy when I feel like it." It wasn't just cruel. It was the truth she had been acting out for years. She finally said out loud what her silence had been shouting. So I stopped fighting for someone who no longer existed. No rage, no begging. No more reaching across a void too cold to survive. Just a smile. A quiet step out of the room. A silence that finally belonged to me. And she didn't know it yet, but that was the night I began packing. Not clothes, not furniture. I packed myself, piece by piece, emotion by emotion. Until one day, there would be nothing left of me beside her. And the first step was simple. I stopped trying, not dramatically, not with shouting or door slamming, just silently. I stopped reaching for her hand on the couch, stopped making her coffee in the mornings, stopped sending little messages during the day. And here's the part that hurt the most. She didn't notice. Not a single word. Not a single question. Maybe she liked it. Maybe she thought she'd finally trained me out of needing affection. But here's what she didn't understand. When a man stops trying, he's already half gone. Not with his feet, but with his heart. Maybe she thought this was what control looked like, having someone orbit around her while she sat still in the center. And when the orbit finally stops, the person stays in place. But that's not how people work. When someone stops spinning, they don't stay still. They drift. And I was drifting fast. I began waking up before her earlier than necessary. Not because I was busy, but because I couldn't stand the silent weight of our mornings anymore. Her walking into the kitchen without a greeting, eyes sliding past me like I was furniture. So I started leaving before that moment could happen. I'd sit in my car, coffee in hand, and just breathe. For the first time in months, oxygen actually felt like oxygen. I went back to the gym. Not for revenge, not to suddenly become attractive to someone new, but because I needed to pour my energy into something that wasn't this dying house. I had forgotten how good it felt to feel strong, to sweat, to push myself in ways that had nothing to do with being a husband, a fixer, a silent background character. And yes, I started noticing looks again. From women who actually saw me. People who didn't look through me like I was an appliance quietly humming in the background of their lives. But I wasn't stupid. I wasn't her. I wasn't doing any of this to cheat or get even. This wasn't about finding someone else. This was about finding me again. About a week after that fight, she finally noticed. I came home from the gym around 8. I didn't rush anymore. Dinner was long over takeout, judging by the boxes on the counter. She was on the couch in her robe, Netflix lighting her face, half a glass of wine sweating on the coffee table. "You're late," she said, eyes glued to the screen. "I didn't realize there was a curfew," I replied, dropping my keys on the counter. That made her pause. Her eyes lifted, slow, surprised, like she couldn't believe I'd spoken to her that way. I moved around the kitchen, cleaning up her mess. No sighing. No sarcastic comments. Just quiet, detached movements. "You okay?" she asked. Not concerned, just curious. Better than I've been in a long time. That one sentence shook her more than any argument ever did. She stared at me, trying to understand what had changed, but I offered nothing else. The next days followed the same pattern. I was calm, polite, helpful even, but I was no longer hers. No touching, no asking about her day, no jealousy, no emotional reaction to anything she did. And that silence, that distance, it started to get under her skin. She began testing me. Lingerie in bed where she once wore old t-shirts. Sudden interest in my day. Fake sweetness dripping from her voice. But I didn't take the bait. I was respectful, civil, indifferent. She wasn't the center of my world anymore. Honestly, she wasn't even in the top 5. Then came the financial shift. I had always been the one who handled everything. Bills, savings, investments, taxes. She called herself independent, but she couldn't read a credit card statement unless it was to question a charge I made for myself. So I made changes, quiet ones. I cancelled a few subscriptions ones she enjoyed but never paid for. I rerouted a portion of my salary into a private account she couldn't access. I started planning a future without shared finances, without shared anything. A future without her. She didn't notice at first, but she would. Oh, she would, because it was never about sex. She never withheld intimacy out of disinterest. It was power control, dominance. But power only works when someone plays the game. And I had stopped playing. The way she watched me gave her away. Not lovingly, not like a wife rediscovering her husband. No, her eyes followed me with suspicion. Tight, calculating, sharp. She'd pretend to scroll her phone, but I could feel her gaze tracking me. Who were you texting? Why so dressed up for the gym? The smile on her face didn't reach her eyes. She thought I was cheating. The irony almost made me laugh. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't even flirting. I was just living again. And she couldn't handle it. Because in her mind, I was the stable one. The dependable one. The husband who never strayed, never questioned, never threatened her place at the center of our little universe. So when I stopped orbiting, she panicked. That's when I knew she had something to hide. Rachel had always been the friend my wife kept at arm's length, loud, wild, unpredictable. The kind of woman she secretly judged but never cut off. Until recently. I hadn't seen Rachel in months, but one afternoon I ran into her at the grocery store. Wine aisle of all places. She turned the corner, saw me, and froze. "Oh, hey," she said, blinking fast. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Why not?" I asked. She opened her mouth like she was about to say something, then shut it just as fast. "No reason? Just thought you'd be working or whatever." She forced a smile and walked away too quickly. But I saw it, that flash of recognition you only see when someone realizes they've said too much. I didn't confront her. I didn't need to. But the moment lodged itself in my mind like a splinter. That night, I opened the shared calendar on my phone, the one we had used for years to plan trips, dinners, birthdays, everything. Lately, it was filled with vague entries, consulting, creative check-in, wellness thing, vague enough to sound harmless, harmless enough to hide in plain sight. But I knew my wife. She wasn't creative. She didn't consult. She wasn't starting a business. Once I had asked, just lightly, casually, what those meetings were. She shrugged. "Personal projects," she said. "You wouldn't be interested." She was right. I hadn't been, but now I was. So I did something I had never done in all our years of marriage. I checked her phone. No panic, no guilt, no shaking hands. I simply reached over while she slept, pressed her fingerprint to the sensor, and went inside a life I didn't know she was living. The normal texts were there, friends, family, errands, but there were gaps, deleted threads, silences where conversations should have been. Then I found it. A hidden folder disguised as a calculator app. The kind teenagers use to hide photos and messages from their parents. Inside, a second phone number. No name, just digits. But the messages told the truth. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. He hasn't touched me in weeks. It's like living with a shadow. No, he doesn't suspect. He's too passive. Passive. I stared at that word for a long time. That's what I was to her. Not a husband. Not a partner. Just something silent and useful, a shape, filling space and paying bills. She thought my patience was weakness. I kept scrolling. Some messages were flirtatious, some explicit, some cruel. But one shattered whatever was left of me. He just exists. He pays the bills and disappears. It's boring. She didn't just cheat. She despised me for making it too easy for her to betray me. I sat outside that night, long after the sun disappeared, letting the cold sting my skin. Just to feel something real. And I made a decision. No confrontation, no screaming, no asking why. I didn't want the truth. I already had it. I was going to remove her from my life, quietly, cleanly, surgically. She wouldn't even realize she was bleeding until I was gone. But I needed to know one thing. Who? Because if I was going to dismantle her fantasy, I wanted to know whose foundation she built it on. So I ran the number through a lookup service. When the name came up, my heartbeat stopped. I knew him. Of course I did. We worked in the same building. The harmless one from IT. The one she said reminded her of a golden retriever. Married. 2 kids. We'd had beers together. I'd trusted him in my home. He'd fixed her laptop once and she baked him cookies to say thank you. And while I paid our mortgage, vacuumed the living room and tried to fix a marriage alone, he was sending her pictures from his shower. That was the moment everything locked into place. She never had power over me. She just mistook my silence for surrender. And now that I'd stopped reflecting her back to herself, she was cracking. There's a kind of quiet right before a storm, not loud, not dramatic, just heavy. That's what our house felt like. She didn't know I had read everything, but she could feel it, the ground shifting. At dinner, her eyes kept flicking toward me, waiting for me to yell, to ask, to beg. But I did none of that. I was done being predictable. I had become a stranger in my own home. And that terrified her. Because a stranger is dangerous. A stranger has nothing to lose. A stranger doesn't need her. She tried to recover. Laugh louder, touch my arm. Fake concern, but it was too late. Not because I'd stopped loving her, but because I'd stopped caring. My wife used to keep her distance physically, emotionally, spiritually. Until one day, fate decided to be cruelly generous. I ran into her at the grocery store. She spotted me in the wine aisle and her face froze like a deer caught in headlights. "Oh, hey," she stammered, forcing a smile. "Didn't expect to see you here. Why not?" I asked. She opened her mouth ready to say something, then shut it just as fast. "No reason. Thought you'd be working or whatever." That's when I saw it, that flicker of panic people get when they realize they've revealed something they shouldn't. I pretended not to notice, but her eyes told the truth her mouth wouldn't. That night, long after she fell asleep, curiosity became courage. I checked our shared calendar, the one we used for years to organize life anniversaries, dentist appointments, grocery lists. Lately, her side had been filled with strange entries. Consult, wellness session, creative check-in. She wasn't creative. She didn't consult. She wasn't starting any business, I'd asked once. She shrugged. Personal projects. You wouldn't be interested. She was right, I wasn't. But now, I was. And for the first time in our marriage, I did something I never imagined I would. I checked her phone. Not in panic, not in guilt, not in fear. Just certainty. Her fingerprint unlocked everything. The ordinary texts were there, but so were the gaps, the deleted chunks, silences big enough to hold secrets. Then I saw it, a fake calculator app. Teenagers use those to hide photos and messages from their parents. Inside it was her second phone number, the real one, and the messages I can't stop thinking about yesterday. He doesn't touch me anymore. Living with him is like living with a ghost. No, he won't find out. He's too passive. Passive. That word sat in my chest like ice. To her, I wasn't a husband. I was a placeholder. A quiet provider she could disrespect because I never broke. But the worst wasn't the flirting, or the explicit photos, or the promises whispered in digital dark. It was one message. He just exists, pays the bills and disappears. It's boring. She didn't just cheat. She despised me for making life too easy. That night, I sat outside on the deck, letting the cold remind me I still had a pulse. And there in the dark, I made a decision. No screaming, no begging, no dramatic confrontation. A surgeon doesn't argue with a tumor. He removes it, silently, cleanly. But I needed one more thing, the name. So, I ran the number through a lookup service. When the result appeared, the world went still. I knew him. Everyone knew him. The harmless, funny guy from IT. Married. 2 kids. Gentle. Helpful. Safe. He once fixed her laptop. She baked him cookies. And now, he was sending her shower photos while I vacuumed the living room and paid the mortgage. That was the moment. Something inside me died, and something else was born. She thought she broke me, but she only awakened the version of me that didn't need her anymore. She started feeling it, the shift. The silence between us was no longer wounded. It was powerful. She tried flirting, smiled harder, talked sweeter, wore the black slip I bought her years ago, leaning on the doorway like a ghost of a woman she no longer was. "I'm tired," I said, turning a page in my book. I didn't even look at her. The flash of rejection in her eyes. That was the first real emotion I'd seen from her in months. She played games. I played chess, and my move was already made. A lawyer, screenshots, hidden accounts, financial deception, infidelity. Adultery wasn't a victory by itself, but paired with the rest. It was leverage, and I had a mountain of it. I waited until her wellness retreat weekend, the one where she was really meeting him in a rented cabin 3 hours away. I watched them book it together from her hidden email, still connected to our shared tablet. She kissed me goodbye. I wished her a relaxing weekend. When her car turned the corner, the calm became surgical precision. Bank accounts separated. Joint cards frozen. Her luxury car lease cancelled. It was under my name anyway. No confrontation required. She would discover her empire collapsing while sitting beside the man she risked everything for. That night, I sent one text: "When you return, don't come home. Papers arriving Monday." No punctuation, no emotion. Truth doesn't need decoration. She spiraled. "What are you talking about?" "We need to talk. You're ruining everything. You're being dramatic. You're not the kind of man who walks away." There it was. The fantasy. In her mind, I was predictable, pliable, passive. But that man was gone. The locks were changed before she returned. I watched through the window as she stood on the porch, crying, screaming, begging. I didn't open the door. Dignity is silent. By morning, she was gone, leaving behind only a broken heel and a streak of mascara on the doorframe. Papers served Monday. At her office, in front of everyone she once wanted to impress. I didn't want to humiliate her. I just stopped protecting the image of a woman who never protected me. Then came the silence. Not peace, just aftermath. And finally, the drip of messages. "I made mistakes. Don't do this out of anger. You're my husband. Please." She still didn't understand. I wasn't angry. I was free. Eventually, the affair ended. Reality does that. He was sweet when she was married, but useless when she was alone. She lost a lot, but I didn't destroy her. I just removed myself, and without me, her world collapsed on its own. 3 weeks after the divorce, I saw her at a coffee shop. No makeup, eyes tired, softer, smaller. "You look good," she whispered. "I feel good." She searched my face, hunting for the man she controlled. He wasn't there. As I walked past her, I said, "You once told me I'd get intimacy when you felt like giving it." Her lips parted, maybe to apologize, maybe to manipulate. I didn't stay to hear. I stepped into the sunlight, took a sip of my coffee, and left her behind. Because the truth is simple. She never had power. She only had permission. And I took it back. If you felt this story in your chest, like a bruise you forgot was there, tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Love and Tears, where stories aren't just told, they're felt.